Coming up, it's finally here. Medical reform. We tell you what you need to know to fly without a third-class medical certificate.
The Senate vets Transportation Secretary nominee, and she said some things we like to hear.
A new G1000 and new piston-powered aircraft from Cirrus.
And taking big flying boats to the big screen. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
There are many important things to consider before purchasing an aircraft. Let the experts at Aerospace Reports help guide you through the process. We combine expert knowledge with our long-standing commitment to personalized customer service to perfect your transaction. Learn more at aerospacereports.com.
And today, we're issuing a new rule that will make it easier for GA pilots to keep flying. Starting on May 1st, general aviation pilots will be able to fly without holding an FAA medical certificate as long as they meet several education and medical requirements.
Round of applause. And with that, and after decades of dogged effort, third-class medical reform is real, folks.
It is, and now a large majority of general aviation pilots will be able to fly without repeated visits to an aviation medical examiner.
It's a really big deal to help get people back into aviation. We're very happy, after decades of work with you and AOPA and others, we're finally at a place where we're going to have medical reform in a meaningful way.
And yes, it is a big deal, as important to GA's future as product liability reform was some 20 years ago.
And like product liability, medical reform comes out of legislation AOPA helped push through Congress last year. Warren Morningstar tells us more about what this all means. So Warren?
Well, you know, Tom and Melissa, this is certainly the biggest deal in my career here at AOPA. And like you guys, I've been here a long time. Yep. FAA is calling it BasicMed, but FAA says it is not in any way, shape, or form lowering the medical certification standards.
Helps the airmen meet the appropriate level of safety for these non-commercial operations.
The FAA published the BasicMed final rule this week, and you can start flying under the new rule in May.
So with this effort, I'm really hopeful, and really do expect all of us in aviation to be even safer than we've been before.
The BasicMed rule appears to follow closely the medical reform law passed last July.
So we were able to convince decision makers and policy makers that this is a much better alternative. So right now we're going through the rule, and at first glance it appears that the FAA did everything they could to follow the intent and the requirements outlined in the law specifically. So
who can use this alternate means of medical compliance? Well, if you held a valid medical certificate anytime after July 15th, 2006, you can choose to certify under BasicMed. AOPA has an interactive online checklist to help you decide if BasicMed is for you, and it's part of AOPA's Fit to Fly resources.
The Fit to Fly, and that really is, I think, an appropriate buzz term for this issue that we spent years calling third-class medical reform, but it really is about our general recognition, our ability to self-certify every day as we've done for years, and to be recognized we're capable decision makers to be ready and fit to fly.
Now, to make sure you know that you're fit to fly, you'll need to take an online medical education course every 2 years. AOPA's course will be available shortly.
The course was developed primarily by the Air Safety Institute. We had a lot of input from AOPA staff, from physicians around the country, aviation medical examiners, non-AMEs. FAA did a review of the course over a year ago now. Provided us with some really good input on what they would like to see as the regulators of the National Airspace System from a safety standpoint.
The legislation, and of course now the FAA rule, also requires that you see a state-certified physician every 4 years. You'll give the doc a checklist of things to look at to determine if you're fit to fly.
It's going to be very similar to the current third-class medical examination, but there are significant differences, obviously. That information, it won't be a pass-fail or a go-no-go because it's not going to be reported to the FAA.
You'll need to keep a copy of that form with your logbook.
Now we have to think about life as flying as 1, 2, 4. Annually for your airplane, every 2 years with a free online test from AOPA and FAA, and your biannual with your CFI, and every 4 years go see your doc at a minimum to make sure you're fit to fly.
So Warren, great news. And I know there's going to be a lot of questions about a bunch of this, but particularly around that kind of airplane. What sort of airplanes would we be able to use if you're flying under the BasicMed certification?
Okay, well, it needs to be an aircraft with a maximum certificated takeoff weight of 6,000 pounds or less, 6 seats, and that's certificated seats. That doesn't mean you can take a larger aircraft and remove some seats to be able to do it. You have to fly slower than 250 knots. You'll be flying below 18,000 feet, but it covers day or night, VFR or IFR, and really this covers just a very large part of GA and most of us GA pilots.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And Warren, I'm sure we'll be hearing from the non-flying community, wondering if this is safe.
Well, I'm sure we will, but as you know, because you've been involved for a long time with this, Melissa, we and others have crunched the data every which way from Sunday, and there's just no evidence to show that a third-class medical certificate makes any significant change in safety. And in fact, we think this is going to be as safe or maybe even safer than the current third-class medical certificate.
We're not changing the standard for fitness for flight. What we're providing is an alternative path to demonstrate compliance with that.
And we think it's preventative to make sure that you're doing your physical examination every 4 years, to make sure you're doing it in depth, to make sure if there are things that can improve your health, you're being honest about it and getting better every day.
Now, Mark made the point that some pilots may have been reluctant in the past to tell their AME everything for fear of losing the medical certificate. So what we believe is that an honest discussion with your primary care physician, going over all of the medical factors, is really going to lead to pilots being safer, and that is fit to fly.
Mm-hmm. However, some members are expressing concern and commenting around the idea that maybe their primary care physician, not a pilot, doesn't have experience in aviation, is going to be unwilling to sign the document for basic medical certification.
Well, as Gary mentioned earlier, we worked with some non-aviation doctors, people who don't have any aviation experience, so that we could find out what their comfort level would be, what they would want to see. And, we're working on some educational materials for the doctors, and we hope to have those out soon. And, really, it's pretty common for doctors to be asked to affirm that someone is medically fit for a certain kind of job or activity. So this really isn't going to be that far out of their wheelhouse.
And if people have more questions?
Well, we have a whole suite of Fit to Fly resources, and that includes a frequently asked questions page. The BasicMed rule and the advisory circular will be on our website. We'll have the free online medical training course available very soon, as well as the educational resources for the doctors. So stay tuned, but stay patient, because this doesn't take effect until May 1st.
Yeah, that's right, folks. Be a little bit patient. It's great progress, but it does come slowly. All this is relatively quickly by FAA standards. But got till May before you can actually exercise these privileges. Anyhow, lots more to come. And when we come back, checking out the brand new Cirrus.
And big boats with wings are ready for their close-up. AOPA Live this week continues after this.
Purchasing your own aircraft is an exciting experience. AOPA Finance simplifies the process, saving you money with lower interest rates and hassle-free loans, so you get into your new aircraft sooner. AOPA Finance, the right approach to buying an aircraft.
Garmin just announced the next generation of the popular G1000. The G1000 NXI looks a lot like its predecessor, but it incorporates a host of new features.
G1000 NXI is Garmin's next generation integrated flight deck, available on the King Air 200, the 300, and the 350 series. And it incorporates more modern processing power, which gives pilots access to more features and much crisper displays.
The most noticeable new feature is the HSI inset map. The map is configurable for a number of overlays like terrain and traffic. Other new features include Garmin's Surface Watch. The feature issues visual and aural alerts as you approach a taxiway or runway. A new vertical situation display across the bottom of the MFD depicts terrain that might affect your altitude. The NXI also incorporates new visual approaches to most every runway. Loaded into the system like any instrument approach, the visual approaches use a 3-degree glide path that can be coupled to the autopilot, providing the pilot lateral and vertical guidance even when normal instrument approach is not available. Connectivity is also greatly improved with the option of FlightStream 510. The new processors allow for many subtle improvements throughout the system and a generally faster, better user experience, including quicker boot up. Manufacturers are wasting no time integrating the panel into their new airplanes. Piper just announced it has certified the new NXI panel in the twin-engine Seminole and the Archer. The University of North Dakota will get the first ones.
And never a company to rest on its laurels, Cirrus is also integrating the NXI into its piston airplanes for 2017. Cirrus takes the NXI panel to a new level with its own improvements. They call it the Perspective Plus.
This is really sort of the next step in kind of re-baselining the avionics and our ability to grow for the future.
Cirrus uses a QWERTY-style keyboard, the type most of us use every day in typing. Another exclusive feature is the home button that brings the pilot back to the system's main page, easing fears of getting lost in deep menus. In flight, using the new Perspective Plus is fast, and the displays are clear and easy to use. The panel makes it easy to load and then visualize instrument approaches. Glide slope is clearly depicted on the PFD. If the approach is below minimums, you can hit the takeoff go-around button, add power, and the autopilot will fly the missed approach for you, all coupled up. Of course, the new flight deck is just the beginning of the changes to the Generation 6 Cirruses. Upgraded leather and other interior improvements increase pilot and passenger comfort. The SR20 sees a major change this year with the switch from a Continental 6-cylinder engine to a 4-cylinder Lycoming.
We've essentially re-engined the 20, made it a little bit more attractive from the flight training perspective, from the cost of ownership perspective, but also made it a lot more functional.
The 215 horsepower Lycoming noticeably improves performance. Across the piston line, new safety enhancing and snazzy looking wingtips become standard. The new upswept wingtips house automotive-like LED halo lights. The long light bar also incorporates the strobes and navigation lights. And then around the front, there are bright LED landing and recognition lights. From the inside out, the features on the G6 show that Cirrus is continuing to push its products to the next level. You can read more about the G6 on our website. So Melissa, I had the chance to fly the King Air 350 with the NXI, and then both of the Cirrus airplanes with their version of what they call Perspective Plus, which is their own take on the Garmin G1000 NXI. And I got to say, it's very impressive. I mean, when the G1000 came out, we just thought that was way cool, and it was, and Garmin has sort of taken that to the next level.
Next generation,
Yep.
always better.
That is right.
Thank you.
Lots more processing power.
In another major win for general aviation, the FAA announced the final rewrite of Part 23 late last year. Part 23 contains the standards GA airplanes must meet to be certified. The rewrite was announced by FAA Administrator Michael Huerta at a FAA press conference.
This rule will usher in a new era of safety and a new era of innovation in general aviation here in the United States of America.
The new rule moves away from the prescriptive and burdensome requirements currently in place.
There's a simple idea at the heart of our new airworthiness standards. We don't want to tell manufacturers how to build the airplane.
To accomplish that goal, the new Part 23 moves to a performance-based standard. The new standards will be developed collaboratively with the aviation industry. The rule applies to certified airplanes less than 19,000 pounds with 19 or fewer seats.
So essentially what performance-based standards are, it just says that the aircraft must do this. Now how you comply with that requirement could be a number of things. You could comply with using the old set of standards, the old Part 23, or you can use a new novel approach using industry consensus standards.
The rule will make it easier to bring new models to market while also making it easier to add new technology to the existing fleet.
And what's nice about this is it enables us to foster new innovation in the industry, get products to market more quickly, reduce their costs, and there's nothing that's bad about that.
The General Aviation Manufacturers Association led the effort to reform Part 23. AOPA actively supported it by submitting comments urging the FAA to quickly implement the changes. The rule will go into effect at the end of August. So Tom, we've worked on this a long time, and it's really exciting. I think the most exciting thing to me is it could bring like envelope of protection types technology that will really do something to further the safety of general aviation.
Yeah, I know you've worked on it a very long time, and it's been an industry-wide collaboration, and it's good stuff. There's a lot of great momentum going on right now with Third Class Medical and Part 23 rewrite. Lots to be positive about in 2017. And speaking of bringing new technology into the cockpit, everyone seems to have an iPad or other tablet computer in the cockpit these days. And there's a slick new option to make sure your electronic devices have the power and route that they need. If your airplane is as vintage as my Nixon-era A36 Bonanza, you've probably still got cigarette lighter receptacles in there like I do. But Guardian Avionics has a new product that will permanently replace that unsightly hole with a dual 2.1 amp USB charging socket. Sits flush with the panel and will take anywhere from 9 to 48 volts. It comes with a NORCE letter of authorization and can be installed by any A&P on Part 23, 27, and 29 certificated aircraft. Find out more on the Guardian Avionics website.
And the woman who is most likely to be the next Secretary of Transportation favors simplifying regulations. Elaine Chao went before the Senate Commerce Committee Wednesday, and she said she favors a risk-based approach to writing regulations. Exactly what happened with the Part 23 rewrite. She also thinks education works better than heavy-handed enforcement.
A lot of times, the rules and regulations can be very confusing. And so the government, whether it be at the federal, state, and local levels, I believe, has a responsibility to engage in outreach, to help the regulated community understand what is required of them.
There's little doubt that Elaine Chao will be confirmed as Secretary of Transportation. The Senate has confirmed her 4 times before, and she's married to Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. Flying boats are icons of times gone by. Stately clippers who once ruled the skies and harbors. The machines are getting hard to come by.
And the pilots who own and maintain these airplanes are a special breed. Some of them are being profiled in a new documentary called Flying Boat. AOPA Live's Paul Harrop met the filmmaker who's taking these big birds to the big screen.
The Grumman Albatross is a special machine.
The details of this plane are just fantastic. It's a perfect blend of machinery and functionality and capability. It's unmatched in any other machine. I really think it's one of the greatest machines ever created.
And it takes a special kind of owner.
It's a dream machine. You look at the airplane, you say, my God, I can do anything with this airplane. And you can. But it takes an experienced pilot, it takes a lot of training, and it takes a lot of practice. And it burns about 110 gallons an hour.
Tom Casey is up to the challenges, though.
I got interested in the Albatross in the early 90s. I had a Republic CB, and it didn't last long, but the experience did. I loved it. And I started investigating what sort of airplane I might be able to afford. I was an airline pilot with American Airlines, a young captain, and I couldn't afford a Widgeon, I couldn't afford a Goose, I couldn't afford a Mallard, but ironically I could afford an Albatross.
And so began a journey of loving restoration. The airplane you see today was in pieces when Tom bought it, and his story is like most owner-restorers, one of love and pretty interesting. Dirk Braun thinks so. He's a filmmaker from Colorado who's set out to tell stories like Tom's.
We're investigating and interviewing and talking with the people who are still flying these fantastic relics from the golden era of aviation.
His movie Flying Boat looks to see what it is actually like to use these old giants.
There's a small group of great people that use them for all different kind of purposes, and they've traveled all around the world and done so many things. And to me, they're some of the most interesting and diversely capable machines ever created. And we're exploring that to the most of its degree and trying to get creative with how we're going to be using the planes.
He hopes to preserve the legacy of the Flying Boat on screen for future generations. Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
The film is still in production. You can find out more about it on the Flying Boat movie website. Boy, those are truly mechanical marvels, aren't they? Incredible airplanes from a bygone era.
They are, and that Albatross is beautiful. I had an opportunity to fly one a few years ago,
Right.
and it didn't look like that, but a great airplane.
Most of them don't. And that's a wrap for this week. Thanks for watching.
We hope you'll be back next Thursday for another edition of AOPA Live This Week.